But what I want to speak to you guys, to you lovely ladies, about is physical discipline. Well, as you know it, as beats. Let me break it down colloquially for you guys as beats. As we know, like, physical discipline, beats, has been a staple of Caribbean and African households as an effective method for correcting and deterring bad behaviour in children. However, a new article on medium.com has listed 6 different ways you can discipline your child without getting physical. So they said things like getting them to do chores, or possibly even just talking to them about what they've done wrong. So different suggestions like that. But my question to you guys is physical discipline still needed or even acceptable in 2020? And does anyone have the right to tell you how to discipline your child?
So I'll take the first question first, because I actually think that smacking your kid is a form of punishment that we should just let go of. I think we've had enough. We've done it for enough generations. Let's just let it go, you know? Because I think for children, before you know how to learn for yourself, you learn from your parents. And I think when you punish a child by smacking them, all that you're saying to that child is it is acceptable for bad things to result in physical consequences. And there was a 2011 study that showed that children that were hit are more likely to use hitting to resolve things with their peers and with their siblings. And there was also a group of psychologists that concluded that if a child was hit regularly, they actually become more aggressive than the children who are not. So I don't think it's something that I'd use on my children, because I don't think it's worth it, but I also don't see it as a form of abuse. So I've been reading a lot of articles about how a lot of areas in the UK are trying to make it law to ban smacking. And the only reason why I'm kind of like on the fence with that one, even though I don't think it's a good form of punishment, I'm on the fence with the law, because I just feel like it will get messy. And I feel like a lot of good parents trying to discipline their children will just end up in jail. And you're trying to protect these children by having these laws in place, but you're just going to end up having kids with no parents, because you're just gonna, for example, if you had a next door neighbor, if you saw someone and you had something against them, all you need to say is, oh, I saw that mother smack their child on the bum, and then they could be involved with the police. That's, I don't know about that.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, when I first started talking about this topic, I was just like, I don't mind a little smack here and there. Like, for me, that's how I first thought, because I was just like, there's a very clear difference between a smack or a spanking and abuse. And I think from things that I have personally heard from people within my friendship circle who are of Black descent, a lot of times it was abuse what people were getting. It wasn't a smack. It was beating kids with whatever's around in complete anger. And for me, I'm like, that's just abuse. That's abuse. A smack on the hand or a smack on the bum when you've tried every other method. For me, I was kind of like, I don't really see a problem with that. And I agree with you, Luanda, that it's going to give a certain amount of power to the authorities, that is going to be dangerous. Probably, let's be honest, for minority ethnics, not just Black, but minority ethnics, because proportionally, we spank more. So I'm concerned about that. But I think looking
at tissues know it.
I think looking at reports and things, and like you were saying, Luanda, in terms of the fact that sometimes children who are spanked are more aggressive, or they might, hit out at other children, that made me really concerned, because they're saying like children who are spanked don't do as well in life, and that freaks the hell out of me. Now, I really want to know, in those studies, do they mean the occasional spank like once a month, or do they mean children that are regularly spanked? Because I think there is a difference. So I'm not really sure, but I think I went from I don't mind a little spank here and there to like, it's something that I'd much more question, because I do feel like there are many other ways that you can discipline a child before you get to physical, I don't want to say violence, a physical form of it.
Yeah, I'm not for spanking at all. I was never spanked because I was such
Well,
a
that
child.
was what they said. They were saying children who were spanked are more likely to spank. I was spanked. Children who weren't spanked are less likely to spank. So statistically, it's true.
I mean,
Even on this.
I was not spanked. I was such a good child. No, but I was.
So were your siblings, Anissa?
Yes. Well, I'd say this. My older siblings, I think, definitely was spanked. But I honestly just think by the time my mum got to me, she was just tired, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Fair enough.
In all honesty, I don't think it was this personal preference. I just honestly think she was tired. And there was two of us, like me and Anissa, at the same time. And I think it was just too much. Too much was going on, really. But I wouldn't ever say the alternative was better. But personally for me, spanking isn't a thing for me, but I do understand when I see, because I've got like nieces and nephews and things like that, when I see the parents get so frustrated and, like, for example, maybe if they've had a long day, the last thing you want to do is try to reason with a 2-year-old. Not to say that you're going to hit the 2-year-old, but it's kind of like, it's overwhelming. They're overwhelmed as well. So sometimes, like, I understand that they may lash out. I'm never saying it's right because, I'm not for it.
Yeah.
But I kind of understand where maybe people might smack, but I'm just not for smacking because I just don't think children should be taught that resolving conflict or whatever has violence in any way to do with it, even if it was small. Like, for me, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, when I used just for me, it's just like, no, let's just take it out. Let's raise people to have great conflict resolution skills using their words, and let's challenge their communication skills and articulate. And it's all great in me saying that because I'm not a parent, so honestly, it means nothing. Yeah, it's honestly, I'm saying this to you in a magical world because I'm not a parent at all. But I've lost my train of thought about me not being a parent. Me not being a parent, I can't tell you particularly how to discipline your child. But what I would say is just maybe try to speak to them as much as you can. But I know it's hard when you've got some kids that are just bad to the bizzo.
Bad to the bizzo. But this is what I was going to say because, like, I've never gotten to my wits' ends with a child that I'm raising because I've never raised a child. So I'm coming from hypotheticals, but I think that, so I was spanked as a kid and my younger brothers weren't, like your parents, Anissa, they just got a bit tired. So my older sister and I received it more than they did. But I think that what I got in terms of physical punishment versus what my parents would have got from my Caribbean grandparents is like nothing in comparison. So I feel like as the generations are going down, it's just getting reduced because my parents probably got the belt and then I'm getting the hand and then my kids won't get anything because I just don't think that I don't think it does more good than bad, so I just won't be doing it. And also, I can't really imagine myself like smacking a kid. I just don't think it's going to work for me. But
I think it depends. Like, oh, sorry.
No, carry on.
I was going to say by some of the parents that I know, they said it really comes down to the specific child. So saying some children need different levels of discipline. So I know someone, they were like, one of my children, they went, you can talk to them and they will understand and they'll get it. They went, the other one, when it gets to a certain point, a little timely smack really brings across the message that we're trying to get because they get to a level where they can't be talked to or reasoned with. So I think it really depends on the child. I think there's just so many different things to look at.
I don't know about that though.
No,
I don't know.
I agree with Sophie.
Because my sister has 3 children and they're all different and they all have to be disciplined in various ways. One might take something.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not saying that children don't have to be disciplined in different ways because everyone has their own individual personality. But I think that even so, you can still find a creative way that's going to hurt them that doesn't involve a physical pain, because in terms of the messages that you're giving that child, like, I just don't want to ever teach them that some form of violence is going to solve a problem. And so I think you can take their Xbox, you can take their phone, all kids have a phone these days. You can say, you're coming straight home after school, or, take away if they're going to like some fun school trip or a dance or something, you take it away. And I think for kids, when we're disciplining kids, I say me with all my children, when we're disciplining kids, we want like a fast resolution. So we want like, okay, I'm going to hit you and you're going to stop doing that thing. But I think it stings more if you take note of the thing, if you tell them you're going to be punished for this if you don't stop doing it, and then they don't stop doing it, and a week later when they've completely forgotten about it and they think that it's over because they've stopped crying, you say to them, you're not going to your friend's sleepover because you did this thing. I really don't think they're going to do that thing again, because what
Luanda, you are on some hardcore you were going to like, don't you worry, I've remembered.
Oh my gosh.
You think I forgot? No problem. I'm gonna hold it out. Luanda, that's mean.
Give it to me live and direct. Give it to me live and direct.
It's
Luanda, that's cold-blooded. It's cold. That's cold.
Listen, man. Listen, it's gonna get you some results.
I think I'm in the medium between you, Sophie, and Luanda. I think each kid is different, so you have to approach discipline in a completely different way. But I'm with Luanda about getting it creative. Now, I've been an aunt for half of my life, really, actually more than half of my life. So I've been doing this a long time. So I've realised in my babysitting techniques that some kids respond to different things. So some kids I can sit down and reason with. Other kids, I just have to bring them to the mirror and say, look at yourself, you're a mess. What are you doing? Relax, calm down. And the same
guys, do you know what? I feel like spanking isn't the problem with you two. I feel like
the kids cry, they got spot all over their face. You have to bring them to the mirror and say, look at yourself.
You break spirit. That's what I say. You were trying to bring the child spirit.
Honestly, you bring them to the mirror when they're crying and say, look at yourself, you're a mess. Is this what you want to do? And they look at the mirror, they look at you, they're confused. You say, no, you don't want to say. And you wipe the tears and you push on. And it depends on the kids, I'm telling you. Because it hasn't worked with all of my nieces and nephews, but it's worked with some. I was going to say that.
No, but shaming is actually a way not to discipline children. That's actually been a proven fact that by shaming children,
they look. Yes.
No, but shaming them actually does something to like their self-esteem and their sense of worth.
Yeah.
So it is a very fine line between. That's my thing about disciplining and stepping over the line, because just because you're not smacking them doesn't mean it's not having some sort of emotional effect. And I wanted to touch on something that Luanda said, because I read this article in The Atlantic, and it was saying that families that come from a lower socio-economic background and have less access to money and education physically discipline their children more. And one of the things they were showing is that they didn't have any means of showing any other discipline. So they couldn't take away electricals. They couldn't stop them from going on that school trip because they were never going anyway because they didn't have the money.
Right.
So they were saying it can also be dependent on what people have access to, where they're saying people who had more money, they were even lower middle class, there's a drastic change in seeing that they are more likely to take things away because there are things to take away. And they're saying people from a lower economic background will never take away allowance. Now, I say never, but most majority, they don't take away allowance, because they're saying if you come from a poorer background, taking away allowance means that they might not have school dinners. Whereas they're saying for richer kids, they would take away an allowance because it's kind of like, well, it just means that you're not going to get that clothes or those trainers or whatever. So this debate really seems to differ depending on where you are in society, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
To bring it back to the second part of the question, do you think anybody has a right to tell anyone how to discipline their child?
It's very difficult, because obviously you don't want to, first of all, step on people's toes, and you don't want to, come from a place of judgment. But at the same time, you're allowed to care about children even if you didn't give birth to them. And sometimes there are a lot of parents who, because, I was listening to a podcast the other day and it was saying how, when you get to that age, like late teens, early 20s, and then you realize your parents are actually just humans and they're actually just people as well. And going from the perspective that parents are also just humans that make mistakes and have their own traumas and things like that. Sometimes parents don't do the work that is necessary on themselves before they bring another person into the world. And so sometimes you have an unhealthy person raising children in an unhealthy way. And in those cases, we need to talk about it.
100%. I agree. I personally try to not tell anyone to do anything with their child, because I've been told clearly that's their person's child and that is their business. But I have no issue if I see something and I think I have a helpful suggestion to be able to lay out the suggestion. But I've learned it's the person's choice about whether they want my advice. And I've realized it's also had to be a bit solicited. Like they've had to ask me versus me saying, oh, do you know what you should do? But I now just say, oh, do you know what I just saw on this mummy blog? They were doing this, and then they kind of take my word a bit better, because it's not just like me who's made it up.
Yeah, it's coming from another mother.
I think those sound like some actually really good action points, because I was really involved in my niece's early years, because I lived with my sister, so for the first two I lived together when they were just babies up until whenever. And for me, I think I would only ever step in if I thought something was turning into abuse. Like if I saw someone and I thought this is actually abuse going on, then I would step in. But I think in general, I think people do have a right to discipline their children the way that they want. But I agree, I would never give unsolicited advice, because my mom told me if people don't ask for it, they don't want it, don't give it.
Yeah.
So I think if they look like they were struggling or a bit exasperated, it might be like, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? So that's what I would say.
Yeah, do you know what, Sophie? Actually, as you said that, I feel like the reason why I've given advice is because I feel like I'm so involved, even though at times I'm not that involved, but sometimes I'm really involved. So I'm like, for me, I'm just part of the parent tribe, so I feel like I should have to say, even though it's not my child. But at this point, I feel like I've become like my mum, because at this point I have 7 nephews and 4 nieces. So I'm so I'm like tired now, to the point where now I've got to the mirror because I have nothing else left in me. But before, maybe I would have sat down and spoken to you and been like, what are you doing? Now it's like, come, let's look.
That is the funniest thing.
So I feel like I've always given advice because I felt like I was entitled to, but I think that was my own issue.
Yeah. But I think when you're an auntie, you're going to love your nieces and nephews like they're your own children until you have your own children, and that's just going to be what it is, you know?